Hey there, boys and ghouls. Welcome to another episode of Super Zombie Movie Review Man.
If you thought Zombie 3 was weird, you have not seen anything yet. Only with After Death, aka Zombie 4, you're actually getting a pretty solid zombie effort, and a very different one at that. After Death is a 1989 Italian zombie movie, released in the US under the title Zombie 4 After Death, and in the UK as Zombie Flesh Eaters 3. The movie has no real connections to the other official or unofficial zombie films. This zombie title release discrepancy is something I've touched upon in past zombie reviews, and it's kind of complicated to those who don't know anything about it, but watch my review of Dawn of the Dead 1978, and I do a pretty decent job of explaining it there. Anyways, After Death was directed by frequent European zombie writer-director Claudio Fragasso. It happened like this. Producer Franco Gaudenzzi approached Claudio Fragasso and his wife Rosella Drudi about making another zombie film after Zombie 3 made a huge financial loss for Gaudenzzi, which is weird because usually if the film flops, the opposite happens and they don't want to make any more, but I guess this film was the exception. However, the movie would only be greenlit after the budget was slashed to nearly half that of Zombie 3, with the only real production perk of the deal being that many scenes would be shot in the Philippines using the same studio space used for Zombie 3, with the rest of the film, obviously, being shot in various tropical locations, a real jungle atmosphere throughout. As a result of the drastically reduced budget, though, most of the zombies' faces were covered with cloth and not made up in the zombie makeup. As for the general plot goes, it actually sort of harkens back to the original Zombie, and it by no means is a direct sequel to that film, but it does borrow the voodoo elements we saw in that original quote-unquote first entry, rather than the viral infection style scenario we saw in the flaccid Zombie 3, which was still an enjoyable film for all the wrong reasons, but anyways. The plot goes like this. A woman goes back to the island where her parents were murdered. They had been working on a cure for cancer and accidentally raised the dead by angering a voodoo priest. With the woman is a group of mercenaries and they meet up with some other researchers. They accidentally raise the dead again and all hell breaks loose, literally. And that's the plot. We have our film. And what a pleasant surprise this film was. It really did capture my imagination and hold my attention when I first watched the film when I was younger. Naturally, seeing this as a VHS tape on a random video rental store shelf gave me kind of a blasé emotion due to my experiences with Zombie 3, but being the obsessive young zombie fanatic I was, and still am, I, of course, picked up a copy and watched it. Fantastic. I'm not going to give the pacing, the acting, or the effects an A+ rating, but I will say the locations were awesome. Both the dungeon-like sets filmed at the studio and the on-site jungle locations. They were all very vibrant and fun to watch. The action sequences were pretty elaborate too for a film with a budget like this. Having come off the heels of Zombie 3's kind of failure in Italy just a year later, the cinematography was excellent, and the acting, although not anywhere near as perfect, was at least believable and interesting. And a cool thing about the zombies in this film, going back to what I said about their makeup issues, with the bandage alternatives and whatnot, these zombies are not really our typical zombies. They're not just flesh-eating psychos, they're more akin to a Pet Sematary zombie, and by that I mean that they're somewhat sentient beings. They're kind of possessed with this evil, and they sort of have the memories of the humans they once were, but they're now completely hellbent. Some of these things look freaky too, man. I mean, look at this shit. This is nightmare fuel, for sure. And the soundtrack, although very simple, is many times better than the score for Zombie 3, and it kind of reminds me of the Day of the Dead soundtrack with its tropical influences, being that the majority of the film takes place in the jungle and whatnot. The only slightly negative aspect is the cheesy rock song theme that we hear quite often throughout the film, which is so cheesy and 80s epic that it actually becomes a positive. So yeah, the positives of this film definitely outweigh the negatives, even though the director of this film is the same guy who made Troll 2. Ugh. Somehow they pulled off a pretty damn good zombie flick. Be sure to pick this one up and watch it. You will not be disappointed. In the end though, I'm going to go ahead and give this film a 7 out of 10. And yes, I realize that's the same score I gave to the original Night of the Living Dead, but my reasons are my reasons, so get the fuck over it. Just kidding. If you want to debate with me as to why I'm wrong about these films receiving the same score as Night, let's do it in the comments below. Let's have a debate. Zombie 4, aka After Death, 7 out of 10.
Alright, guys, that's it for today's show. I will see you next time.